In Hollywood, right on the famous Walk of Fame, a crew of workers is laying down a new star. The engraved name is Elisabeth Sparkle, an actress who, at that moment, is beloved by everyone. People stop to take pictures of her. Tourists excitedly point her out. But years go by. The star gets dirty, cracks, and fewer people remember who Elisabeth Sparkle is. In the present day, Elisabeth is 50 years old and works as the host of a televised aerobics show. You can tell she's been doing the same thing for a long time. She finishes taping an episode and walks down a hallway lined with old posters of her show, mostly from when she was younger. She tries to go into the women's restroom, but it's out of order, so she slips into the men's room instead. Right then, Harvey, the network producer, walks in talking on his phone, completely unaware she's in there. Harvey says that Elisabeth is getting too old, that he doesn't care if she's won awards, and that they need someone young and pretty to replace her as soon as possible. Elisabeth listens to everything without moving. Once Harvey leaves, she's left alone staring at herself in the mirror. The next day, Harvey meets her at a restaurant. While eating without even looking her in the eye, he tells her the network needs a revamp, that at 50, she no longer connects with the audience, and he basically fires her. Then he gets up to greet a friend, leaving her sitting there all alone. Elisabeth drives back home. On the way, she spots some workers tearing down a huge billboard featuring her face. She gets distracted watching them, and right at that moment, another car crashes hard into hers. Luckily, she isn't seriously hurt. At the hospital, the doctor tells her it's a miracle she doesn't have a single broken bone. It happens to be her birthday that exact day, and when the doctor tries to wish her a happy birthday, Elisabeth breaks down and starts to cry. The doctor leaves for an emergency, leaving only a young male nurse in the room. The guy comes over, checks her back and spine, and tells her something weird, that she is a good candidate. He then hands her her coat and acts like nothing happened. Elisabeth notices the nurse has a large mark on his hand. Once outside, she reaches into her coat pocket and finds a USB drive labeled The Substance, with a phone number written on the back and a note saying it changed his life. Just then, Fred appears, an older man who went to school with her. He's thrilled to see her, tells her she's still beautiful, and says he'd love to take her out to dinner. Elisabeth isn't really in the mood, but, out of politeness, takes his phone number. Back at her apartment, Elisabeth plugs the USB into her TV. A video plays, explaining what The Substance is. It's a product that can create a younger, more beautiful, more perfect version of yourself. You inject it just once, and this new version emerges from your body. But there are rules. Your younger self can only be active for 7 days, and then you have to switch back to your original body for another 7 days. The most important rule is that you are both the same person, and you must never forget that. Elisabeth thinks it's garbage and throws the USB in the trash. That night, she goes out to a bar for a drink. She sees young women having a great time, easily getting attention, and her midlife crisis hits her hard. She gets home drunk, looks in the mirror, and can't stand what she sees. So she digs the USB out of the trash and calls the number. A voice asks for her address and gives her another address to go to. The next day, Elisabeth sees in the paper that the network has already announced a casting call to replace her, looking for girls between 18 and 30. She also receives an envelope in the mail containing a keycard with the number 503 on it. Elisabeth goes to the address she was given. It's a sketchy alleyway that looks abandoned. She taps the card on a wall reader, and a door opens. She walks down a dark hallway until she reaches a white room filled with lockers. She opens locker 503 with her card and pulls out a cardboard box. At home, she opens the box. Inside is a complete kit. The activator, a single-use injection. The stabilizer, a liquid her younger version must extract from Elisabeth's spine every day. Some tubing to connect the two bodies when it's time to switch. And special IV food that keeps the dormant body alive for 7 days. It also includes cards with the rules: activate only once, stabilize daily, switch every 7 days without exception, and always remember that the two are one single person. That night, Elisabeth gathers her courage. She fills the syringe with the activator and injects herself. Within seconds, she collapses on the floor in agonizing pain. Her back splits open, and a young, beautiful woman emerges from inside her body. Elisabeth's consciousness is now in this new body. The younger version looks in the mirror in disbelief. Everything is firm. Everything is perfect. Then she looks down at Elisabeth lying on the floor. She stitches up the wound on her back, hooks her up to the IV food bag that needs to last 7 days, and extracts spinal fluid from Elisabeth to inject into herself as the stabilizer. The next day, the younger version steps out onto the street feeling powerful. She spots a cute outfit in a store and buys it. Then she heads straight to the casting call for the new aerobics show. She introduces herself as Sue and gets the job immediately. Harvey meets her and is totally charmed by her. Sue tells him she needs to take time off every 2 weeks to visit her mom, and Harvey agrees without an issue. In just a few days, Sue becomes a star. She appears in commercials and does incredibly well on the show, and she follows the rules. She stabilizes daily, and when the 7th day comes, she makes the body switch by hooking up the tubes. Elisabeth wakes up in pain. She goes to the network to pack up her things, and Harvey hands her a box with her belongings along with a French cookbook as a parting gift. Her days are bleak. She just watches TV and waits for the 7 days to pass so she can be Sue again. And so, the cycles begin. 1 week she's Sue, radiant and famous. The next week she's Elisabeth, lonely and bored. It gets harder and harder for her to accept her original body. Sue builds a secret room behind a bathroom wall to hide Elisabeth while she's active, because seeing her lying on the floor makes her uncomfortable. But one night, Sue decides to go out partying even though she knows it's her 7th day and it's time to switch. She comes home late with a guy, and while they're together, she starts feeling sick and gets a nosebleed. Instead of making the switch like she's supposed to, she goes to the secret room and extracts an extra dose of spinal fluid from Elisabeth. That was strictly forbidden. The next day, Elisabeth wakes up and discovers that one of her fingers is rotting, severely prematurely aged. Terrified, she calls the substance number. They tell her there is no way to fix it. Whatever one body takes in excess, the other loses. That's why the rules exist. Elisabeth tries to explain that she can't control what Sue does, but they just reply that they are the same person. Elisabeth goes to get her weekly kit from the alley and then stops at a diner. An old man talks to her there. He has the same mark on his hand as the hospital nurse. It's him, but aged. He also uses the substance. He tells her he understands that waiting 7 days feels like an eternity, and that over time the anxiety eats you up inside. Elisabeth gets scared seeing how worn out the old man looks and runs away. Trying to feel valued, Elisabeth calls Fred and suggests they grab dinner. He happily accepts, and they agree to meet at an Italian restaurant. Elisabeth gets dressed up, does her makeup, and makes herself look nice. But every time she's about to leave, she looks in the mirror and hates what she sees. Out the window, she sees a giant billboard with Sue's face. She compares herself and loses. She wipes off her makeup, practically tearing at her skin in frustration. In the end, she blows off the date. Fred texts her, asking if she's okay, but she never replies. To cope with her sadness, Elisabeth starts binge-eating everything in sight. And that causes problems for Sue. During a taping of the show, something moves under the skin of Sue's leg. Freaked out, she stops the taping and runs to her dressing room. She examines her body and finds a weird lump. She pushes it from her leg all the way up to her belly button, then reaches in to pull it out. She pulls out a chicken drumstick, part of all the junk Elisabeth had been eating. Then she wakes up and realizes it was some sort of dream or vision, but the message is clear. Whatever Elisabeth eats affects her. Sue arrives at the studio the next day and is told her show has been canceled. Harvey wants to see her in his office. Sue goes up terrified, thinking she's going to be fired, but it's the exact opposite. Harvey tells her the audience loves her so much that they're giving her a bigger show. Plus, she'll be the host of the New Year's Eve special, with over 50 million people watching live. Sue accepts without a second thought. The problem is that prepping for that show requires weeks of non-stop work. Sue decides not to switch bodies. She goes into the secret room and starts draining vial after vial of spinal fluid from Elisabeth. Weeks pass. Sue works, rehearses, does interviews. In one of those interviews, she's asked what she thinks of Elisabeth Sparkle. Sue says she never watched her show, that it was outdated, and that she is the new generation. Elisabeth watches this on TV and fills with rage. She screams that Sue wouldn't exist without her. She throws eggs at the screen and covers the windows with newspaper so she doesn't have to look at Sue's giant billboard. 3 months go by without Sue making the switch. She even gets a live-in boyfriend. But one day she goes to the secret room to extract more fluid, and Elisabeth's body is already dried up. Only a gross, black liquid comes out of her spine. Sue calls the substance number, and they tell her the only way for the fluid to regenerate is to make the body switch right now. Sue doesn't want to because the big show is the very next day. But she starts bleeding and getting dizzy. She has no other choice. She drags herself to the bathroom and makes the switch. The noise wakes up her boyfriend, who walks toward the bathroom, concerned. Elisabeth wakes up, slams the door shut just in time, and looks in the mirror. What she sees is horrifying. She looks like a monster. She's bald, wrinkled, and deformed. Her boyfriend knocks on the door, but Elisabeth yells at him with a raspy voice to get out. The guy freaks out and runs off. Elisabeth calls the substance and tells them she wants to end it all. They reply that the next day, they'll leave a termination package in her locker. Elisabeth goes to get the package. It's a syringe filled with a black liquid. Back home, she drags Sue into the living room and plunges the syringe into her chest. The liquid starts flowing in, and Sue begins to die. But halfway through, Elisabeth regrets it. She remembers that Sue achieved all her dreams, that she's the only part of herself she doesn't hate. She pulls the syringe out before emptying it completely. Desperate, Elisabeth hooks up the IV tubes to give her a blood transfusion and revive her. And it works. Sue opens her eyes. But now, they are both awake at the same time, each with her own consciousness. Elisabeth looks at her fondly, but Sue spots the termination syringe on the floor and realizes what happened. She fills with rage and lunges at Elisabeth. The beatdown is brutal. Sue smashes her against the mirror, kicks her, and drags her all over the apartment. Elisabeth tries to escape but can't. Sue beats her to death. When she finally stops and sees blood everywhere, she panics. But then she remembers that tonight is the New Year's Eve show. She cleans herself up and heads to the network. At the TV station, Sue tries on her dress. But the side effects of killing Elisabeth start to show. Her teeth fall out. One of her ears drops off. Her body is literally falling apart. She runs back to her apartment and finds the tiny bit of the substance that's left. Even though the instructions clearly state it should only be activated once, she injects it anyway. Her back splits open again, but this time, a beautiful body doesn't come out. What emerges is a deformed, monstrous creature. It has Elisabeth's face on its back, arms in the wrong places, and teeth on its chest. It's something entirely inhuman. The creature manages to put on the show dress as best as it can, glues a cutout photo of Elisabeth's face onto its own, and heads to the studio. When it steps onto the stage, the photo falls off its face. The audience sees what it truly is and starts screaming in sheer terror. People demand that it be killed. A man knocks its head off with one hit, but the body doesn't stop. It starts spraying blood everywhere, drenching the audience, the chairs, the stage, and Harvey. The creature tries to escape but falls outside the building, and its entire body explodes. The only thing left alive is Elisabeth's face. It slowly crawls across the ground until it reaches the Walk of Fame. It makes its way to her star, the very same one they laid down years ago when everyone loved her. It stays there, looking up at the sky, remembering what she used to be, and little by little, it melts away until there's nothing left. Just a bloodstain over the name Elisabeth Sparkle.